And now for the final speech of the debate and the semi-finals, we have the opposition leader.
There are many things money can't buy. One of these things is peacekeeping. You simply cannot pump money at a problem, pay billions and billions and billions of dollars that aren't easy to come by if you remember that the UN budget is no more than $5 to $6 billion. And this is what they're advocating, throwing money at the problem. So let's analyze this debate on two levels. Firstly, all the messy bureaucracy that goes behind sending private military contractors in. And secondly, what actually happens when private military contractors enter the ground. On the first area. Now they tell us that developed countries will suddenly pay a lot more money, right? Because they can finally contribute money instead of troops. The question here is, why do developed countries then not contribute money towards the training and provision of weapons and equipment to the peacekeepers on the ground to begin with? Clearly there's something else that's stopping them besides providing troops on the ground. They could contribute money in so many other ways. And if we don't see developed countries volunteering to up their contributions to the UN, clearly there's something else there's something else that's a problem here. The next thing they told us, right, that UN private partnerships are entirely feasible and entirely possible. Let's look at what they raised to us. They raised us UN-UNESCO partnership. Now, we see that that is kind of a partnership within the UN rather than a UN private partnership. But moreover, okay, we concede that the UN, in certain instances, can cooperate with private companies. There is a proper division of labor that's possible, but in war, seriously? In war? When things are so chaotic on the ground, when no one can understand the situations that go within Congo and Darfur, for instance, when there's so many thousands of tribal factions on the ground, seriously, can you monitor the relations between Blackwater, for instance, and everyone else that's going on the ground? Can you seriously do it? We say that when you have peacekeeping, we need a certain element of trust in your troops. And if your troops are solely motivated by profit and money, that is a very concrete problem. Okay. So moving on to the meat of the debate, no thank you sir and madam, we are going on to evaluating whether private military contractors are suitable for peacekeeping on the ground. I'll evaluate these in three areas. Firstly, on their tendencies to commit atrocity. Secondly, on the specific and delicate nature of peacekeeping. And lastly, on the speed of response, which is what they seem to be harping upon as the Sherwin point of their case. The first area, right, the tendency to commit atrocity. Now the question here is, are these troops going to wear the blue beret or not? If they wear the blue beret, now how are you going to differentiate the committing of atrocities from the people who don't commit atrocities if they're all wearing the same blue beret? For instance, let's look at it. If an atrocity is committed, what matters is that the people on the ground view the blue berets in totality as people who have compromised their interests. There is no difference once you put on a blue beret, and you have to put on a blue beret, because without the blue beret, you have no authority whatsoever to conduct peacekeeping to begin with. So we can work with the assumption that all these people are wearing the blue beret. So let's take a look at their entire case, right? How do they prevent atrocities? The main thing they told us was, we have a one-strike policy. The question is, the composition of these private military contracting companies are very fluid. People hire mercenaries, people de-hire mercenaries at will. So if a one-strike policy on a company, say, or Mercenaries Inc., you simply X out the name, you disband the company, you rehire the company, you reassemble a new army, you go into the situation again, and you re-tender to escape all the bureaucracy. Hence that really fails as a measure against it. The second thing we have to say is that there is a perverse incentive for them to cover up their atrocities. Let's look at it. There's so many situations that are so chaotic, no one understands what's going on. It's very easy to cover up. And now let's look at this. Blackwater, right? Estimates for Blackwater's numbers range from between 8,000 to 80,000. If you cannot even determine the composition, the numbers of troops that are on the ground, how are you going to illustrate your, the entirety of your force on the ground? They're very good at covering up and concealing key details. No thank you. They're very good at concealing key details about their operations, and that is something that has to be considered today. No thank you. The next thing, the specific nature of peacekeeping, and this is where we think, right, that idle troops right, that third-rate soldiers are sometimes better than conflict veterans. Because conflict veterans are necessarily militant in nature. They go into a conflict and they have the preconceived notion that guns, toughness are the way forward. But I think that for peacekeeping, you need a certain soft approach. You need to go in and have gentleness and temperance in the way you approach matters. And we think that, look, if there's so much money to pay Blackwater, to pay XE, let's channel that money towards training these third-rate soldiers, to instilling a sense of discipline and ethos in these soldiers, because that is what money can do. It can train labour on the ground. Yes, I'll take the gentleman.
Sir, if the UN, under the aegis of the WFP, can hire private supply companies to distribute food and rations in places where there are no governments, why do you think they can't provide security?
The simple answer here is, it is a situation of war, and peacekeeping is a lot more than just distributing food. It's about negotiating complex tribal loyalties. It's about convincing people on the ground that there is value to peace, and perpetual conflict isn't all there is to human existence. It's about things like this. And I don't see how tougher US Marines, ex-Marines can possibly ever do this, can ever fulfill this function. No, thank you. Now, we think that you need to do impartial good on the ground, and this is best fulfilled with our current mix, even if it can be improved. Now, let's look at this. We need self-sacrificial, loyal soldiers on the ground. Let's look at what they have considered their entire case to be about. Money, right? Their professional ethos is completely driven by money. So we don't think they're going to sacrifice their lives because they want to survive to enjoy the spoils of war. They want to enjoy the spoils and the payment that comes in. So where from comes the noble incentive to give up your life in service of humanity, to give up your life in service of mankind? Nothing that happens at all because noble deeds are done. Please don't diss national pride, please don't diss humanity, because these are noble ideals that genuinely do motivate peacekeepers and servants of humanity. That actually does happen, and these are concrete motivations which we have to take into account. The next thing we want to say is the risk-reward basis, correct? We say that these private military contractors come into the conflict, and before they decide to enter, they weigh the risk and the reward. Do you seriously think Blackwater and XE are going to tender for something as complex and difficult as Congo without charging an exceedingly high premium on it? We think the UN cannot afford it, firstly, and secondly, it's exploitation of the UN. Now we have a way out. We have all the money, we have a way out. We train the peacekeepers on the ground. We ensure that the processes are in place, and we don't have to worry about all the problems that they are going to encounter in their case. Instances of people, instances of bureaucracy, instances of people being corrupt, instances of atrocities on the ground, all these will happen in their side of the house. Let's play safe, let's do what peacekeeping is supposed to do, let's go with the opposition bench.
Okay,